The only way to make this a best-selling book is to do the process properly. Your role should be to open up every door possible. And he said, let the world close the doors you're not meant to walk through and walk through the ones that remain open. Your company is giving you an opportunity to learn, to grow, to test. I learned so much about digital and strategy working at Accenture that I could never have got from reading a book.
Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
Top 10, I got a top 10. Got my motivation high for my top 10. Gotta learn from the wise women and men. All my life, like 9 and 9. For my top 10, top 10, 9 and 9. This one's for my top 10.
Hey, it's Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person in your circle, but you know you're capable of more, and you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Jay Shetty, and my take on his top 10 rules of success. Enjoy.
Okay, let's kick it off with rule number 1, protect your purpose.
I realized that those 3 years, and I describe it this way in the way you said it, that the 3 years being a monk were being at school. And the last 7 years since I've left have been the exam. And I can genuinely say so far that every tool that I have tested from my monk toolkit works. And the biggest one, or most likely the most powerful one that I felt is, there's a beautiful verse in the Manusmriti I talk about in the book. And it says that when you protect your purpose protects you. And what I mean by that, and I will broaden purpose to mean what it needs to mean for anyone listening, you have to protect your strengths, your calling, your passions, your interests, your skills. You have to protect them like a precious jewel, because the whole world will come at you and tell you that it's not a jewel. The whole world will come at you and tell you that it's worth nothing. And if you don't protect it, it can't protect your value back. And most of us, as soon as we get questioned, we just chuck the jewel out. We just chuck it away and we go, oh yeah, that wasn't worth anything. And then later on in life, you realize you threw away a precious jewel. So I love that verse, because that's what I was being tested to do. Is I was about to go sell myself short and just go back into the world that I came from and just chuck out that jewel, rather than like, hey, I learned all these things. I wanted to serve. I became a monk because I wanted to serve. How can I still serve? How can I not just throw that all out and pretend that it doesn't matter? And how can I apply the discipline and the mentality and all of the great skills? Because guess what? When, surprise, surprise, no one wants to hire someone with monk on their resume for 3 years. And that's what I had. Because they couldn't see the transferable skills. I had to see them. So they were thinking, oh, he's probably just going to be really quiet in the office, right? Like, what is he going to do? But I knew that quiet was intuition. I knew that quiet was solitude, not loneliness. I knew that quiet was the power, that ability to read things, to read in between the lines, to connect with people.
Rule number 2, interpret time.
Most of us are asking for things that aren't even clearly linked to what we are actually missing. And so I'll give an example of this. I have so many clients that I coach, or so many people that I work with, where the number one thing they want from their partner is time. They're like, I wish my partner had more time. Brendan, I wish they just gave me more time. Now, the amazing thing is me and Brendan are giving each other time right now, but what if I was like this the whole time?
Right.
What if Brendan was writing another best-selling book at this time? And we kind of talk, but imagine we did that the whole time.
Right. It looks like you're present there with them, but you're not. When this is like a force field between you, your phone, your task, your thing. I love that time. Yeah, that's so good.
This could be a book, this could be a newspaper, this could be email, whatever it is. But it's interesting. People say I want more time, and so people come back from a weekend away. And then they'll go back to their partner and be like, I wish we spent more time together. And the other partner's going, well, we just went away on a weekend. And they're thinking, but you were at the beach and I was with the kids, and that wasn't. So what are people really asking for? I've realized that over this time, people are asking for 3 things when they're asking for time. They're asking for presence, they're asking for attention, and they're asking for intimacy. That is what people are actually asking for.
Beautiful.
Say the word time, and so we misunderstand it.
Rule number 3, open up all possible doors.
We truly have influence more than our environment. Our environment affects us for sure. It plants seeds and weeds into our life, but there is still a choice. And I think even if you feel there isn't a choice, simply by accepting that there is, it means you have a chance to get out of there. And I think that's what...
Because if you don't accept that there is, then you're just going to stay stuck.
Correct. Like there've been so many times in my life, and there's a beautiful quote from Edison. I don't think I said this last time, but if I did, it's worth repeating. He said that when you believe you've exhausted all options, remember this, you haven't. And the reason why I love that is your mind continuously feels stuck when it's tried the obvious. And that's why a lot of creativity and focus studies say that the first 10 ideas that come to your mind are never the most interesting. It's when you get into the 11th idea that you start breaking the pattern. And so if someone asks you, oh, what's your best business idea? Your first 10 ideas are probably not that innovative. And so the mind constantly gets stuck on that train, and you've got to keep reminding yourself that there is another door, there could be another pathway. I was thinking about a piece of advice so one of my closest spiritual mentors, who was in London, I knew him since I was probably like 12 and properly went since I was 18. He passed away this year from stage 4 brain cancer. And he'd had brain cancer for about, I think like 4 years now. And so I hadn't really had a real interaction with him for the past few years, because every time I saw him, he wasn't fully functioning in his short-term memory. His long-term memory was there, but his short-term memory wasn't. And I remember speaking to him probably about 7-8 years ago and asking him the question. I said to him, I've got so many ideas. There's so many things I could do. Where do I start? And he said this beautiful thing to me. He said, you know what? Your role should be to open up every door possible. And he said, let the world close the doors you're not meant to walk through and walk through the ones that remain open. And what I realized is most of us are just not opening up enough doors because we think we only have the option of 2 doors. We look at life as binary, 0 and 1, 0 and 1, right? It's just
this
A
or
B,
that,
this or that. And I mean, I think you'd say this too about you and every guest you ever had on. I don't think life is ever this or that. It's like this, that, and maybe that, and that. And there's always a gap.
Rule number 4, have a service mindset.
Let's take that salesperson. The more time that person spends in empathy, their customer's pain, and what the customer is really looking for, the better they're going to be received.
Yes.
So that service mindset always helps, because if you're thinking about, and this is what it comes, and I said this to my team when we were writing the book and everything that I was working on, I said, if I sit here right now and all I'm thinking about while I'm writing the book is being a best-selling book, then guess what? I'm now not writing the book. I'm now living in the future and I'm not living in the present. And so the only way to make this a best-selling book is to do the process properly. And I don't think, and this is what I do, and this is the only thing that's helping me, and again, I go through it all the time. After my first video went viral 3-4 years ago, I stopped creating because of the pressure that I wouldn't be able to live up to it.
Wow.
So I actually got scared because I was like, oh, well, what if the next video doesn't do as well? Everyone's gonna think I'm tanking. Like, you get into that self-doubt and and I got into that space where I was just
Thank you for being honest about that.
Yeah, no, really. Like, genuinely, I didn't want to make a video again because I was like, this video just got 40 million views. Like, how am I ever gonna beat that, right? And you get scared. I was like, I'm not putting anything out. I'm just gonna stop. And then I started to realize, I was like, well, now I'm not living in service anymore. I'm living out of ego and I'm living for feeling a certain way. And guess what? I'm not feeling better by not putting anything out. And actually, if I just serve more, I'll learn more. So the way I've made sense of it, and there's a verse in the Gita that explains it too, is that you have full control over the preparation, the process, and the practice. But you have no control over the potential result. But all of those 3 things are the result in and of themselves.
Yes.
And so if you get addicted to the process of writing, the practice of connecting with the right people who can help share your work, and like you said, I am focused on the process of making sure that the most people in the world have the opportunity to buy this book. But then if they choose not to buy it, I can't control that. But I can control making sure that it's in front of everyone and that I believe in the content. And that to me is not attachment, that to me is not ego, that to me is trying to live your best life. I mean, like, if you didn't just try, if you're like, I wrote this book, but who cares? I mean, that's not service either. Because the way I explain it, and I'm not claiming that this is it, and I'm not trying to say I'm it, I'm trying to say that I think we all feel this way. If you or me see an amazing movie, we want to tell everyone about it. If you read an amazing book, you want to tell everyone about it. If you found the cure to cancer, you tell everyone about it. For me, I got to live an incredible life thanks to these amazing teachers I met.
Yeah.
I just want to tell everyone about it. Like, that's all I'm doing.
Yes.
But I want to tell everyone because of how powerful it was. Hey everyone, I have been reading a bit from my friend's book, Evan Carmichael, Built to Serve, and I wanted to share this with you. So, according to a study by Carnegie Mellon University, people with supportive spouses are more likely to give themselves the chance to succeed. They studied 163 married couples and found that people with supportive spouses were more likely to take on potentially rewarding challenges. Those who accepted challenges experienced more personal growth, happiness, and psychological well-being. Now, I can truly say that I've experienced that in my life. When I first met my wife, I was just starting out. I had never released a video. I hadn't created any content. And she was such an important part of feeling supported on that journey. So whether you're in a relationship, whether you're dating, whether you're married, or even if you're single, being supported by friends and a strong community is important. Built to Serve by Evan Carmichael. Great book on how you can find your purpose and also on reminding us that we can all make a difference in the world. Thanks, Evan.
Rule number 5, take advantage of every opportunity.
So I end up creating this social media role at Accenture where I'm creating all of this content. I'm learning how the biggest brands in the world use social media. I'm working with executives on social media presence and understanding Twitter and LinkedIn. And I just get exposed to this incredible world. And that's where I get to learn these skills. It wasn't that, like I never created, viral content while I was at Accenture, but it just started opening up my mind to what was possible, right? It was just like, oh, these are the tools. Feeling comfortable with failure, getting it wrong. It gave me a playground, right? It gave me an opportunity. And this is what anyone who's listening in to this right now or watching this and you're working at a company, your company is giving you an opportunity to learn, to grow, to test. I learned so much about digital and strategy working at Accenture that I could never have got from reading a book or going to a course or a seminar because it was there. Like I was there with it every day with a company that was 500,000 people, a global organization. So that's when I hear that people are dissatisfied with their jobs and their companies, my biggest question is, have you learned everything you possibly could from that place? Because the truth is, you could find a lot more meaning and passion in a place that you don't want to be in because you realize it could be the answer and key to what you could do in the future. And there is so much to gain.
Yeah, that's a cool lens.
Rule number 6, find your strengths.
In life, there are two aspects that impact everything, our thinking and our actions. And I read a quote the other day that was saying that the mistake we make is that we either act without thinking or we think without acting. And I think that's where most people are. If you're feeling stuck or you're like, I'm not sure what I'm doing right now, you're either doing too much thinking or you're doing too much acting. So you're just doing a lot of stuff, but you don't know why you're doing it, or you're just sitting there procrastinating every day and you're doing it. So I'd say it's both. So the first thing I would say to you is take a moment and speak to 3 different people. Speak to a family member, a friend, and a colleague, and ask them this one question. What strengths do I have? What do you think is my superpower? What skills do you think I bring? Emotional, strong, soft, hard, whatever it is. Do that first. Get that sense check. Second thing, for the next month, take off every weekend, 8 days, because there's 8 Saturdays and Sundays all together in a month, and book a different course, workshop, seminar, online, offline, go to an event, shadow a friend, go and spend time with an aunt, uncle who's doing the career you want. Go and have 8 new experiences. And after each of them, sit with yourself and ask yourself, did I like that, yes or no? Whether you liked it or not, ask yourself, why did I like it or why did I not like it? And then ask yourself, would I like to do it again? And if the answer is yes, 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 guess what? Go do it again. Wow. And if the answer is no, 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 don't do it again, leave it out. But if you've had 8, and this is the problem, we do that over a year. We do that over 8 years. And that's why life feels slow and boring and lethargic and stuck. Yes. But it just, in the next 8 days in a weekend, just test 8 new things and you'll have just a great experiment. And the worst thing that will happen is you'll find 8 things that you don't like. But I guarantee you that even if you have a sense of that reflection in the beginning, and what I don't get why we don't do this enough is, we do it with food and movies all the time. Like Ed is such a kind man. Like, I got here slightly late because of traffic, and then he let me eat my lunch because I wanted to be full of energy. I need to find out where that place is because it's local to here. My team got it ordered for me. It was amazing.
Good.
And it's like, you know when you eat something, whether you like it or not. You know when you watch a movie, whether you like it or not. You know when you read a book, whether you like it or not. But why don't we ask ourselves after meeting people, completing projects, or going to places? Most of us keep meeting people that take our energy. Most of us keep going to places that drain us of our energy. And most of us keep working on projects that just disturb our energy. All you have to do is ask yourself, does this bring me alive? Why does it bring me alive? Really important to know why it works. And do I want to do it again?
Rule number 7, expand your emotional vocabulary.
I really believe, Brendan, that we have a very limited emotional vocabulary. So when someone says, we use 5 words, okay, good, bad, fine, right? Like, it's like, how's your day going? Okay. How's your week going? Good. How's that project? Fine, right? And so we don't even understand how we feel. So how's someone else going to understand how we feel? So what the emotional vocabulary by Harvard does is that it shows you the top word of, say, sad, and then it shows you almost an extension of what are you really feeling. When you're sad, are you upset? Are you offended? Are you disappointed? Are you disheartened? Are you heartbroken? There are so many more words. So this is what it means to think like a monk, where you diagnose how you genuinely feel, and then you clearly articulate that so that not only are you asking for the right thing, people really understand you. And that's one of the biggest mistakes in relationships. We don't really know what we're asking for.
Rule number 8, entertain different ideas.
Psychologically, we feel a sense of safety and security when we think people agree with us, right? That is just psychologically true, that we would rather avoid conflict and sit in a space where we agree, and therefore we have something called confirmation bias and the echo chamber, where we keep surrounding ourselves with thoughts and ideas that are similar and reaffirm our beliefs. Now, I think that you can have that and at the same time entertain ideas that you're not sure about yet. And so one of my favorite examples was MIT did this study where they asked people which person was more creative and innovative. And they showed 2 charts. One chart was employee A and the other chart was employee B. The chart for employee A, all of the people they knew each other and knew them back. So it was almost like a closed loop. And employee B, they knew lots of people who didn't know each other. And they found that people who have more people in their network who don't know each other are more likely to be creative and productive.
Really? Why is that?
Because they expose you to opposing ideas and they may counteract how you think. So one of my favorite examples of this is a conversation between Mark Zuckerberg and one of his mentors. So Mark Zuckerberg told this story at the Facebook headquarters a few years back. I wasn't there, I've seen it on video, and I'm sure it's available. And he talks about how when he was struggling with the direction of Facebook in 2009, he approached his mentor. And his mentor happened to be Steve Jobs.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
Wow.
Pretty cool. I wish.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's so cool, man. And so anyway, so Mark Zuckerberg goes to Steve Jobs and he says, I'm struggling with the direction of Facebook. Remember at that time, Facebook was 5 years old.
There was no fan pages, I don't think.
I don't think there was no creators. I don't think there were fan pages. It was very much used by university students
Still,
at that stage.
yeah.
Like I think it was mainly like Ivy Leagues.
College kids still,
College
yeah.
kids. And I don't even think it was international in a massive way. Very early days, and now we can't even think of that. But 2009, I mean, you know, you just about had the iPhone and just about had Instagram
Crazy,
and YouTube.
man.
So he went up to Steve Jobs and he said, you know, I'm struggling with the direction of Facebook. What do I do? Now, Steve Jobs at that time obviously was already the founder of one of the biggest brands on the planet, and obviously the brand still is. He had access to investors, he had access to business coaches, I'm sure he had access to life coaches, he had access to
Health experts and everything.
He had access to anything. Like I don't think there's anyone, scientists, PhDs, I don't think there's anyone in the world who Steve Jobs couldn't have called up at the time. And Steve Jobs said something amazing. He said, you know what, Mark, I think you should go and live in an ashram in India.
He did not.
He did.
No
It's
way.
a true story. He goes, and when you go to live in the ashram in India, that's where, if you spend some time there, that's where you'll find your answer.
Shut up.
And Mark did it.
No
Mark
way.
went to the ashram. This is a true story.
For how long?
I believe he was there for, I've seen two online. I've seen two versions of the exact time he was there. I've seen some people said it was a couple of days or a week, or some people said it's a month. So I think it's hazy how much time he actually spent there. But he went. And he says that based on that experience, that's where he found the direction of Facebook, to be connecting people. Now, the reason why I love that story is because it's the unobvious, alternative, random connection. And when Harvard did a study of 3,000 executives, they looked at and asked them, what's the number one skill for being a good leader? And a lot of people would say communication. A lot of people would say vision, strategy, humility. And the number one answer that they got from 3,000 executives was the one word, which is called associating. And what that means is the ability to spot patterns where everyone else doesn't see them. And that's the connect, that real leaders can spot patterns and connections in anomalies. So most people will be like, what has an ashram got to do with a tech platform?
Right.
But that is where you expand your mind to find answers that you never expected.
Rule number 9, dedicate yourself to the process.
I think in our limited mindset, sometimes we think that detachment means indifference, or detachment means disconnecting. And actually, detachment means, and I quote this incredible writer where he said that detachment doesn't mean that you own nothing. Detachment means that nothing owns you. And when you look at detachment through that lens, it means, can I use everything that I have for a higher purpose? Can I use it and engage it rather than be consumed and used by it? Now, granted, that's a very high platform to live on and it's not easy. But the point being that detachment is not indifference. That detachment doesn't just mean, oh, I don't want anything to do with this. It's actually, how can I use this for more than what it's being used for right now? And that's what's known as, by Rupa Goswami, he quotes probably about 500 years ago, he created and coined a term called yukta vairagya, which means using everything for a higher purpose. So he talks about how real renunciation, real detachment, real asceticism is, how can I use this for something more than myself? And it's not about just getting rid of it. And I love that principle. And I think that that's a very practical principle that we can all employ living in the real world. So for monks, detachment is real. Like, we didn't have beds, right? We didn't have a place that we slept. We slept in a different place every night. But if you're not a monk and you want to apply that same principle, this is how you think about it. You recognize that I don't want to be in a position where I am consumed by everything. Another addition to detachment is detached from the result, focused on the process. That's another definition in the Bhagavad Gita, that you're not attached to the fruits of your labor, but you're completely committed to the labor, the process itself. And that's something that we miss so often, that we think being detached means not caring about what happens. Actually, it means caring about the process and not caring about the result. So when we're talking about writing a book, and you've written books, and when you're writing a book, if you're writing a book and all you're thinking about is, how many copies am I going to sell? Now you're not going to write a good book.
No, you're dead out of the gate.
Totally. You're dead straight away, because all you're thinking about is, how many copies am I going to sell? Is this going to rank? If that's what you're thinking about, you're now not present, which means you're not going to write a good book. Whereas if you were dedicated to the process, the result is a given. The result's a natural end to dedicating to the process.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is have fun.
Okay. Wow, there's so much choice. How does anyone decide what pasta to eat? Hey, how's it going? Whereabouts is your pasta?
Sorry?
Pasta?
Pasta?
Yeah. What are they called? Packed tomatoes, like boxes. Tomato boxes? That makes sense, right? Oh, here we go. Chopped tomatoes. Strained, not strained. Do they have to be strained? I have no idea what to do. Oh man, should we just buy one of each?
Now I've got a special bonus clip that I think you're going to enjoy. But before that, it's time for the question of the day. I want to know, what was your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week? When you just get inspired, you watch a video, you get motivated, amazing. The science says you have a 35% chance of actually doing something, actually following through. That, Believe Nation, is not enough. That is not you, not now, not anymore, not today. But when you get inspired and then you create a specific plan of action for what you're gonna do, that number jumps to 91% chance of you following through. And when you commit publicly to others, like leaving a comment in this video, it jumps to 95%. So the question of the day is your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week. Put it down in the comments below, and maybe next week I'll profile you.
When we talk about, there's a beautiful statement by David Lynch, who's movie producer and a deep meditator. And he says that prayer is how you talk to God and meditation is how God talks to you.
Ooh.
And whether you believe in God or the universe or spirit or divine, whatever it means, the point is that there is a dialogue and a conversation.
So prayer is like you're speaking, you're saying, here's what I want.
Here's how I feel.
Help me,
yeah.
And meditation is more receiving.
Receiving, yeah. And so I love that statement because I think it makes it very clear that we have to have a dialogue with the universe. We have to have a dialogue with people in our lives. We have to have a dialogue, and there's both giving and receiving. So when I talk about hearing in between the lines, the best example I can give you, Lewis, is let's take a look at you and your relationship and mine and my wife's relationship. One of us is always traveling.
Yeah.
So you travel, your partner travels, I travel, my wife travels. Sometimes we're missing each other. Imagine you've got really busy and hectic. Do you think, and anyone listening or watching, you can ask the same question. If you were really busy and hectic and stressed out, do you think your partner feels comfortable to tell you how they feel and get your attention?
If I'm busy, stressed out, overwhelmed, will my partner tell me how I feel about themselves or about...
Yeah, do you think they would feel confident to be like, Lewis, I need to tell you something really important?
I don't think they would.
They wouldn't.
Yeah.
They really wouldn't, because...
They don't want to stress you out more.
They don't want to stress you out more.
You're not present, all these things.
Exactly. So, exactly that. And so what happens is, when you're still, your mind and body actually get to speak to you and give you signals of how they feel. And so when you're still, that's when you notice that ache in your foot that you haven't noticed for a month. Sometimes when you slow down, that's when you get sick, because your body wasn't allowing itself to be sick because you were pushing it to get through stuff. And so just like your partners can't communicate with you until you slow down, your body and mind can't communicate with you until you still. And so there's a beautiful Buddhist teaching that says what movement does for the body, stillness does for the mind. And so when we find that space, stillness, and solitude, you really are able to hear your deepest desires and challenges, your physical pains and areas of growth. It's one of the reasons why when people meditate, they feel sleepy afterwards and they think they're doing it wrong, but actually they're doing it right. Meditation just told you needed more sleep.
You need to rest.
Yeah, meditation was just a signal. So sometimes when I meditate with people that I'm coaching,
it's like pass out.
Yeah, some of them will be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Jay. I'm just feeling so tired." And I'm like, "No,
did sleep, the rest."
Yeah, that's what your body's telling you because you finally listened." And some people are like, "Oh, Jay, I feel so energized." And I'm like, "Yeah, because you allowed yourself to be in line with your body, and now your body's saying that you feel energized." At 18, I was really fortunate when I met a monk. And this monk was invited to speak. And I kind of just went because one of my friends forced me to. At that time, I was listening to CEOs and entrepreneurs and business people and marketers who I thought that's what I was aspiring to be like. And then I hear this monk. And he captivated me like no one had ever captivated me before. It was like staring at the most beautiful woman on the planet. You know, I was completely fixated on him and his message. See, we live in echo chambers. We're just surrounded by the same thinking. How often do you bump into a monk? You know, it just doesn't happen. No one has a dinner party and goes, "Oh yeah, we just invited the monk, you know, from town," like the local monk. Like no one ever does that. And so we meet people who are just like us most of the time. And we talk about this in business all the time. If you want to be a billionaire, spend time with billionaires. If you want to be a millionaire, spend time with millionaires. If you want to be a tech startup, spend time with, you know, that's the common rhetoric that we hear all the time. But what if you want to find purpose and master the mind? There's no one better than a monk who's mastered the mind. So for me, the first step is just opening yourself up to new experiences and new role models. Because most of us can't see ourselves in people, so then we try and fit ourselves into the boxes that we do see. And I mean, there's this beautiful quote that I've been saying it everywhere, and I wish I wrote it, but I didn't. So it's by a philosopher and writer named Cooley. And he said that today, I'm not what I think I am. I'm not what you think I am. I am what I think you think I am.
right? And just let that blow your mind for a moment. It's so powerful. I'm not what I think I am. I'm not what you think I am. I am what I think you think I am. So we live in this perception of a perception of ourselves. Hence, my identity is made by what my parents think I should be. My identity is made up by what my college or university thinks I should achieve. While you're living in that bubble and that echo chamber, getting to what you really want to do is impossible, because maybe that just doesn't fit. And I think so many people feel that way today, that they don't fit into the current education system. They don't fit with the 3 or 4 or 5 careers that you're taught exist. So that process of self-excavation and actualization first requires being exposed. You can't be what you can't see. If I never saw a monk, I would never have wanted to be a monk. If I never meet a billionaire, I wouldn't want to be one, because I wouldn't know what that feels like. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what it takes. And I think that's the biggest challenge of our society, that we're not exposed. So that's the first step, being exposed to unique experiences and role models. Second step is finding that experience or role model that you're passionate about, and exactly like you said, taking it seriously. Shadow them, network with them, spend time with them, observe them, even from afar. It takes that observation, being addicted to observing that person's lifestyle. And then the third step is going yes or no. Does that work for me? Not everyone who's going to go off and become a monk is going to feel like the way I did, and that's cool. But not everyone is going to go and follow and shadow a billionaire and go, that's exactly the lifestyle I want. They may want the result, but do they want the hard work that goes with it? And so for me, that's the third step. It's observing, focusing, shadowing, getting as close to the process of that individual, and then going yes or no. Do I want that process? Not do I want the result? Everyone wants to be that monk who's fully enlightened, can walk through, has an incredible aura that people just gravitate towards. But when you realize he has to wake up at 2 a.m. every day and sleeps about 4 to 6 hours, you're like, I don't want to do that. That doesn't sound like me.
How many of you have a crazy dream or a crazy goal? I want you to write out in the comment section, what is your crazy dream? The dream that keeps you up at night is the real dream you should be chasing. But to chase that dream, to find that dream, to make that dream a reality, you need a strategy, right? A dream without a plan is just a wish. Tony Robbins said that, right? A dream without a plan is just a wish, right? Without a strategy, without a guiding philosophy, without guiding principles, without actually creating a clear plan. I used to have this economics teacher, and I want you to think back to school as well. Maybe you had one. I remember this economics teacher. He walked in to the classroom, and the first thing that he wrote on the board, he didn't even tell us his name. We didn't even know who he was. And he turned up, he went inside the classroom, and he wrote on the board, he said, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. And all of us just burst out laughing. This guy hadn't even told us his name yet. But on the board, he wrote, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. And now when I look back at that, and as I grew up and hopefully became a bit more mature than I was in high school, I remember thinking about that statement. I'm thinking, how true is that? That when you're not prepared for something, you miss out on unbelievable opportunities. Now, I'm not saying good things don't happen spontaneously. Sometimes things happen by chance, randomly, etc., with a reason. But when you're prepared, you can capitalize on things in a huge, huge way.
Play to your own element. Don't try and perform someone else's expertly. So in modern terminology, or how would I say that is, don't waste your time, Steve Jobs, don't waste your time trying to live someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma. Focus in on your own strengths, your own element, what you have to offer. Don't get lost in trying to become like someone else or pretend to be someone else. There's a beautiful, one of my favorite quotes by Einstein and then Steve Jobs again. Einstein said, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will spend its whole life believing that it's stupid. And too many of us are fish trying to climb a tree. Too many of us are monkeys being taught how to swim. Too many of us are lions being taught to live like cats. We're not getting to live in our element. So my second piece of advice is live in that element that you've naturally been given. Don't try adopt another. We've all got a special genius inside of us. It was Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs, this conversation. Steve Wozniak, for those who don't know, is the tech guy behind Apple. He practically invented the technology and the software and everything. So Steve Wozniak looked at Steve Jobs and he says, This is in Walter Isaacson's biography of Steve Jobs. Steve Wozniak looks at Steve Jobs and he says, "What do you even do?" He said, "You're not a coder, you're not a designer, you're not a marketer, and you're not an engineer. What do you even do?" Imagine challenging Steve Jobs. And Steve Jobs replies, he says, "Musicians play their instruments, I play the orchestra." That is the most deep understanding of one's role in life and not getting lost in other people's identities and perceptions of you. Steve Jobs knew that he wasn't a marketer, he wasn't an engineer, he wasn't a coder, so he hired all of those. Whether it's David Beckham taking one of his famous free kicks, or whether it's Lewis Hamilton winning the Formula One, or whether it was Steve Jobs about to give one of his famous keynotes, the most underrated skill was this: visualization, the recreation of images, sounds, and environments before it has happened is one of the most powerful skills in the world. A very powerful meditation and mindfulness practice, visualization has been used for centuries to help prepare the mind, the body, and the consciousness for upcoming challenges, situations, and circumstances. Some of the world's greatest athletes use visualization as a way to prepare for big games, the big day, musicians for their new concerts and tours, and CEOs for their very important meetings. We usually don't practice enough. I realize that if you really want to be good at something, you have to invest in it with all your life. You have to become addicted and absorbed to improvement and growth. That means being open to feedback. That means being open to what the experts have to say about you. It means not being attached to your ego and how you feel about yourself, but opening up yourself to an expert group of people to give you insights on how you can grow, evolve, and perform at a higher rate. And linked to that is practice. It's literally impossible to do something perfectly the first time you do it. The more you do it, the better you get. And we think practice is a cliche that we hear all the time, but actually, it's that truth. It's so simple, you might miss it.
Did I miss something here?
What happens in society is that we're clouded by the noise of family expectations, the noise of our parents. I grew up in a family where you could either be a doctor, a lawyer, or a failure. Those were my three options. Anything else would just count me as a failure, right? I'm standing up here in front of you all as a failure. We focus so much on life in what we want to be, as opposed to who we want to be. We've always been told that life and jobs and careers are like boxes and containers. There's only a finite number of options. You can decide right now that I don't want to be defined by this box. I don't want to be defined by this container. I don't want to feel that if only I live in this container, then I'll be able to be successful. Fred Smith was an undergraduate at Yale University in 1965. As part of his coursework, he wrote an economics paper exploring the transportation of goods in the United States. It's how things get delivered to you and me. He found that shippers were transporting large packages and items either via truck or through passenger airplanes. He thought he had a more efficient method. He wrote a last-minute paper, as you do, about how a company transporting small items via a plane would be a much better business model. Because he was rushed, he never really got around to explaining in the paper how that company would run, and he ended up getting a C. The funny thing is, he still didn't give up, and in 1971, he actually launched the company he was speaking about. But within 3 years of founding the company, Federal Express, as it was called, was actually on the verge of bankruptcy. They were losing over $1 million a month. That was because of rising fuel costs, competitors in the same market, and at its zenith, it was only worth about $5,000. Smith even made a final pitch to General Dynamics, hoping for more funding, and it was rejected. Most people at this point probably would have just shut down. Rejection, the grade C, losing $1 million a month. But Fred Smith had different ideas. Smith actually ended up flying to Las Vegas that weekend with all of what the company had, the $5,000. The Monday morning after, the company had $32,000 thanks to his blackjack skills. That money made it possible to cover fuel costs for just a few days more. Soon after the company was able to raise significant funds, he went around to multiple places to find sponsors, investors, people that believed in what he was trying to achieve as a service. The amazing thing is that he was creating a company that we all know today. It's called FedEx. It now operates in over 220 countries and has an annual revenue of over $45 billion. billion. The interesting lesson that we can learn here is that there were countless occasions in Fred Smith's life where he could have said, that's it, it's not working for me. He could have stopped when he got that C for the paper. He could have stopped when he was losing $1 million a month. He could have even stopped when he finally only had enough to just last a few more days. But he believed in his vision. He had belief, he had conviction about his idea and the process and the service that he was creating. And that's the lesson here. If you really want to achieve something, you'll find a way. And if you don't, you'll find excuses.
I noticed in your videos that you ask a lot of questions. And I would imagine that's something that you intend to do.
Yeah, I believe that the answers come from within and we're not asking the right questions. I feel we're always looking for the right answers, not the right questions. And the biggest companies that we respect today, the biggest organizations, all came from trying to answer a question. It all came from trying to solve a problem or a question that we were able to identify. So my work comes from a very simple study that I read that said the most successful people in the world choose education over entertainment. And the most unsuccessful people in the world choose entertainment over education with their spare time. So my mission has been, how do we spread wisdom at the pace people want entertainment? And to me, entertainment allows you to populate the thought with your own brain. Like when you watch a character or a superhero, you can watch it from your own lens. The movie may have morals, it may have values, it may be talking about good and evil, but the movie's not deciding for you. The movie allows you a space to create and imagine and grow. So for me, that's what I want my content to do, is give people a space to populate themselves, see themselves in the characters that I'm presenting, see their own situation, and be able to come to their own conclusion.
So for me, my 3 E's are element, environment, and energy. Everyone has an element that they thrive in. If you take someone out of it, their element, they won't be the same. A modern day example would be Michael Jordan. He was incredible at basketball. You took him out of basketball, put him into baseball, no one remembers his career. We're talking about one of the best athletes of all time. Your environment is the environment around you. You can take a fish out of water and give it a beautiful mansion and a Bentley and all the money in the world, but it would die. And that's what we are, like our environment. Everyone needs an environment which they thrive, which we have to craft. Your boss, if you're at work, is never gonna ask you, hey, what environment do you succeed in, right? Like, that never happens. So we have to create an environment where we thrive. And then finally, it's energy. Some of us love high energy environments, high pressure. Some of us succeed in low energy environments and low pressure. Figuring out your energy and the frequency on which you operate best will help you thrive as well. So for me, those are the 3 E's to really create a thriving environment. Know your element, know your environment, and know your energy. And so at all times, if I see anything going wrong, I'm going, is my element out of alignment? Is my environment out of alignment? Or is my energy out of alignment? And that's a great 3-question test you can do to yourself when you don't think things are going right. And all you have to do is bring that back into alignment. I think Mark Zuckerberg said it brilliantly at Harvard. He was saying that finding your purpose isn't enough. You have to help other people find theirs. And I know you're passionate about this. Whatever that definition is, but it has to lead everyone. So whether I meet a celebrity, an entrepreneur, or whether I meet someone who's starting out, I'm always asking them the question, how can you use what you have to make a difference in the life of other people? Because if you start there, everything else will work out. But if you're starting from the point of what am I gonna get, then you're always gonna feel disconnected. And I see that. I see people who live like that and feel pain in their lives every day. I see that. It's not like some conceptual philosophy. We see it. I see people who are only in it for themselves and they feel disconnected, dissatisfied every single day. And then you see the other extreme where people are just trying to give too much, more than they even have themselves, and they also feel disconnected. And again,
and they have nothing at all.
And they have nothing at all, right? So we know, again, attachment and aversion, 2 sides of the same coin. So we want to be in that dynamic balance of growth, but always to give. So I always think, how can I go 3 steps deeper so that I can move 3 steps forward so I can give 3 times as much, right? That's always my mentality. How do I go deeper to go more forward to give more? And if I can get those 3 in action for that reason, see, it's all about the reasoning. You can do anything you like, but it's why are you doing it? We know that. We all feel that rejection kills dreams. We all feel that failure kills dreams. We all feel that people kill dreams.
You can't kill my dreams.
But actually, there's 4 words that we say in our heads to ourselves that genuinely have destroyed more dreams than all of those things put together. Those 4 words are, what will people say? What will people say? How many times have you stopped yourself from doing something because you're scared of how people will react? How many times, out of the fear of someone else's opinion or criticism, have you stopped yourself from doing what you believe in? How many times has someone's perception or perspective stopped you from living your potential? No matter what you choose to do, there will always be people who find fault with it. There will always be people who criticize, complain, who try to bring you down and tell you that what you're doing isn't right. Haters gonna hate. It's crazy that we give up what we most want in life just based on people's opinions. And the crazy thing is, if we're living for other people's opinions, we'll never be right. There'll always be someone with something that they won't agree with. And this is why it's so important that we work with our own conviction. We work on what matters to us. It was Aristotle who told us that there were only 3 ways to avoid criticism. Do nothing, say nothing, be nothing. And I'm sure none of us want that of our future. When we die, our lifeline does this, right? It looks like this. When you're living, your lifeline's doing this. Notice how that connects with our real experience of life. Real life is ups and downs. Stagnant life, death looks like this. Being an entrepreneur looks like this. One's living, one's dead. You choose. When I saw that and I started to visualize that, I realized that every time I failed, every time things went wrong, every time I chose to risk to live my passion and things didn't work out, and they don't work out, even now they don't work out. And when I analyze the lives of entrepreneurs and look at how things haven't worked out, I just remind myself, that's living, that's not. I'd like you to fast forward to 70, 80, 90 years old, right? Fast forward in your mind to that age, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110 if you're really optimistic, whichever one it is. And I'd like you to write down what will be the things that you'll regret that you didn't do. Imagine you're that age, ask yourself the question, what will I regret that I didn't do? Not what you did do, but what you didn't do. Write it down, make a long list right now. Get a pen and paper out and write it down. Don't do it on your phone, don't do it on your laptop. Actually get a pen and paper and write down your answers. What will be the things that you regret that you didn't do? Right? Really think about it. Will it be learning a new language? Will it be moving home? Will it be telling someone you love them? What will it be? What would it have been? Write it down right now. Now, the incredible thing about this question is that you're using the future to empower the past. Whatever answer you have in that question, whatever your answer is, you can do it right now, today, starting today, because you're not that age yet. And even if you're 64 and you're tuning in 70, 80, 90, you're still there, right? It's still possible. You can start doing that right now. It's empowering the present with the future. There is nothing stopping you from making it happen right now. You don't have to feel that way when you're 70. You don't have to feel that way when you're 80. You never, ever have to feel that way if you start doing it right now. And you can do it right now. Even if it feels impossible, you can start working on it right now. You can start trying right now. You can start making plans right now because you're not there yet. And this is where you start. This is where you start making it happen. It's all in the now. Ideal life for me is a life, and this applies to a company, an organization, an institution for me, is an ideal life is when we all have a head, a heart, and a hand, all 3 elements together, working in alignment. Without one or the other, we start to lose something. If you only have a head and a heart, you'll find that life is stable.
And define each of those.
Yeah, sure. So a head is the clarity of vision.
What you want.
What you want. Knowing what you want, the way you picture life, and being able to navigate and make the decisions to get there. That's a good head. A good heart is being able to understand what your intuition and heart wants, being able to connect and tap into that understanding deeper and beyond the vision you may have painted for yourself. So I often say to people that you'll get to where you want in life, just not in the way you imagined. And that's because the path that's paved up and down is far different to the path we pave. So you can have a great head and a great vision and a great mission and know where you want to go, but if your heart's not able to have that resilience and be able to adapt and have compassion and care and all of that, then you're not going to be able to make the toughest decisions without your heart. But to be able to realize that we need to care and be sustainable and long-lasting requires a heart. And a hand is that service, wanting to pass that on, that which you have, wanting to give it forward, pay it forward. The idea of serving with what you have. I often say to people, your passion is for you, your purpose is for others. Your passion makes you happy, but when you use your passion to make a difference in someone else's life, that's a service, that's a purpose, and that's the hand. So those are my 3 elements of an ideal life. Just around 2 years ago, I had this idea. I wanted to share wisdom at a pace we wanted entertainment. I wanted to share wisdom in a way that it could connect, resonate, and deeply evolve the lives of people all over the world. For 10 years before that, I'd been working with individuals, groups, coaching at universities, companies, and all of these opportunities, but I really wanted to serve and connect with everyone across the world. I wanted to make wisdom accessible to anyone who had one of these.
I have one of those.
So I was excited, I had the energy, the enthusiasm, and I was pitching my idea to every single company that was online. Now remember, this is before I ever made a single video, before any of you knew who I was.
Who's this guy?
I applied to not 10, not 20, but 30 online media companies, hoping that one of them would like my series idea. I waited a day, I waited 2 days, I waited a week. I was rejected by every single one of those companies before interview. None of them invited me for a phone interview. None of them invited me for a video interview. None of them even connected with me in any personal way.
That's rude.
I said to myself, it doesn't matter. Let's see what else I can do to try and make my goal a reality.
What else you got?
So I tried to network with people who may be able to give me a chance. I got one answer and one answer only. They said, you're getting older now. Most of the people who want to break into this industry are around 21 years old. Just don't worry about it. Other people said to me, look, you need to go get a media and journalism degree or a master's, and then we'll take you seriously. Literally, I was getting rejected from every single person I spoke to. But inside of me, I had this desire, I had this calling, I had this mission, I had this vision that I wanted to share everything that I had learned with people out there. I genuinely tried every single possible method I could to break into the media industry, to the point that the only thing that was left that I could try was to start a social media channel. And of course, you know the rest. The most incredible thing is that it reminds me of a really powerful thought from Thomas Edison. He once said, when you believe you've exhausted all options, remember this, you haven't. That thought stayed in my mind the whole time. What I learned from all of this rejection, from all of this failure, from all of these clear no's, was one really important thing. And today, I want to give that as a gift to you.
Me?
If you have a dream, you have an idea, you have a vision, we have to take the responsibility to prove our worth before we expect anyone to value our talent. When I started crafting and creating my own videos, teaching myself how to edit, learning how to produce, understanding the mechanics of social media, when I started putting my energy into that space, that's when people started to take notice. That's when people started to listen. That's when things started to happen.
This is nice.
It's when I decided to take the responsibility for sharing what I was passionate about with the world and not waiting for someone external to validate me or give me permission or allow me to do that. That's what made the difference. If you're feeling you've been going through a lot of rejections, ask yourself this. Is your deeper passion and calling making you want to move further? Number 2, have you truly knocked on every single door? And number 3, are you working hard on investing in your expertise and passion so that you really have something impactful to offer? Have you ever seen someone successful or famous and thought, I could do that better than them? So what's the difference? Why is it that they're out there achieving their goal while you're not able to? See, people underestimate the value of volume, the potential behind how many doors are you ready to knock on? How many tweets are you willing to send? How many people are you willing to ask for help and ask for their guidance and steers? We hardly achieve anything the first time we try. The people that have made it, it's on their 10th, 20th, 100th, sometimes 1000th attempt. So don't underestimate the power of volume. Don't underestimate what's possible when you go out there and speak to everyone that you know. One of the things that, when things don't work out, one of the things I've been telling myself and also thinking about a lot is, apart from the fact of learning, which we'll go into, is just that space of actually understanding that there may be a different route. See, we get so attached to having one route, one method, one way of working. We believe that there's only one pathway to where we want to be. There's this conveyor belt of things we have to do, whether it's, you know, get a degree, find a partner, buy a house, you know, play golf, whatever it is, like this conveyor belt of efficiency and productivity that we hear that becomes a part of our natural progression. And when that breaks apart, that's when we start to worry. That's when we start to think. But notice that actually it's a lot better when that happens earlier in life. See, regret has some really important roles. The first one is that it helps us make sense of the world from our perspective for one of the first times. See, most of us have spent our lives learning what's important to us based on maybe what families thought, what communities thought, what parents thought, what education taught, whatever it is. When you start regretting something, when you think you did something wrong, when you start thinking that I could have done something differently, you're making sense of the world from your perspective. It's crazy how powerful this is, right? You're starting to make sense of the world from your perspective. The second thing is, it allows you to avoid future negative behavior. If you knew you regretted something, I guarantee you, write it down right now. Right? If you regret something, write it down right now, because it will teach you so much in the future. And you've got to write down the lesson you learned now. Otherwise, next time when you think you're making another tough decision, you're going to say to yourself, oh, what did I do last time? How did I not make myself regret that? And then you're going to be upset. You're going to regret that you didn't write it down. So write it down right now. If you're a musician, serve. If you're a coder, serve. If you're an orchestra leader, serve. If you're a entrepreneur, serve. Like, make your life about service and helping other people, not just to feel good, but make that the reason why you do what you do. Don't make that what happens because you have money. Make that the reason you do what you do.
Yeah.
And if people start with service, then you'll experience love, then you'll experience compassion, then you'll experience gratitude. Service is, Gandhi said it, you find yourself when you lose yourself in the service of others. And that's the deepest level of self-actualization. So know that you're the soul and the consciousness, not the body. Know that you have a unique genius and don't settle for any less. And use both of those to serve other people as the reason for the first. I remember this video that went viral around 2 years ago, where this young girl, around 2 years old, started to crawl and walk in her parents' living room. She went up to the television screen and she decided to try and get it to swipe. She started doing this with her little hands and fingers, hoping that the television screen would swipe. To her complete bewilderment, the television screen did not swipe. Oh, come on. All of a sudden, tears started to run down her eyes because she, in her 2-year-old life, had never come across a screen that didn't swipe. It doesn't work.
What do you mean it doesn't work?
It doesn't work! She probably used her parents' iPad or laptop. She used her parents' screen, and she'd been seeing screens swipe for 2 years, but this screen did not swipe. In 2 years, she had developed a belief that every screen in her life swipes. Imagine if in 2 years she was completely conditioned to believe that every screen swipes, how quickly we all become conditioned in 2 decades, 4 decades, 6 decades, or even more. They say that the biggest challenge today is not simply to learn, but to learn, unlearn, and relearn.
Wait, what?
So I want you to think about in your mind the one habit that you want to change. Now, if you truly want to change a habit, psychologists and researchers say it will take anywhere from 21 to 90 days. If you want to change anything in your life, you have to start with a small step, but make it a big priority. One of the biggest mistakes people make is they try to make big changes and make them a small priority.
I had it backwards.
Albert Einstein famously remarked in a conversation with Werner Heisenberg, he said, you know, in the West, we've built a beautiful ship, and in it, it has all the comforts. But actually, the one thing that it doesn't have is a compass, and that's why it doesn't know where it's going. This paradox of our times was propounded by the Dalai Lama when he said we have wider freeways but narrower viewpoints. We have taller buildings but shorter tempers. Will Smith said that we spend money we haven't earned on things we don't need to impress people we don't like. And it's phenomenal how the same technology that brings us close to those who are far away takes us far away from the people that are actually close. 30 billion WhatsApp messages are sent per day, but 48% of people say that they feel lonelier in general. The paradox of our times is that we have more degrees but less sense, more knowledge but less judgment, more experts but less solutions. It was Martin Luther King who said that the irony of our times is that we have guided missiles but misguided men. Have you ever found it perplexing that we've been all the way to the moon and back, but we struggle to start a conversation across the road or across the train? And it's amazing that Bill Gates was known as the top earner in 2015 with a wealth of 79.2 billion, but 1 in 4 CEOs claim to be struggling from depression. Do we actually thrive off this paradox? Is it that this paradox actually makes the media interesting? It's what makes journalism interesting. It's what makes politics interesting. It's what makes television interesting. Is this paradox actually what we feed off and what we live off and what we talk about and discuss in our circles? Doesn't it seem that we've tried to clean the air but polluted our soul? We've split the atom but not our prejudice, and we're aiming for higher incomes but we have lower morals. So I'm hearing you ask, how do we bring a change? How do we dissect this paradox that exists in our lives? And it starts by us, each of us, pressing pause, pressing reset, and then pressing play again, taking a moment to become more conscious, taking a moment to become more aware, taking a moment to really reflect on the consequence, the implications of a misplaced word, of an unnecessary argument that we all know we didn't need to have, or to speak to someone just slightly differently, in a different tone, in a different voice, in a different empathy, with a different perspective, just to really connect with people on a different level. This thinking out loud started from Albert Einstein, and I'll track back to him when he actually said that the problems we have today can't be solved with the same thinking we used when we once created them. So actually we need to research alternative teachings. We need to dig into those ancient books of wisdom. We need to go back to understanding if there's anything written in those creased pages of time that can actually reveal more knowledge and more wisdom of how we can transform our experience of life today. Otherwise, this paradox means that every step forward we take, we're taking 3 backwards every time.
I believe that wealth is beautiful and brilliant. It can do incredible things in the world when used to make a difference. When we use any wealth that we have to make an impact, to use it to make an influence, to help, serve, and support the lives of others. But today, I want to talk to you about a different type of rich list.
There's more than one.
One of my favorite teachings about wealth has been this. You can tell how rich you are by counting the amount of things you have that money cannot buy. There's a beautiful quote by Jim Carrey where he says, I believe that everyone should become rich, famous, and achieve everything they want just to realize that it's not the point.
That would be nice.
Real wealth, inner wealth, fulfillment, satisfaction, meaning, and purpose is a rich list that every single one of us can have and be on. I want you to take a moment to make a list of the things you have that money cannot buy. Maybe it's a beautiful family. Maybe it's an incredible partner. Maybe it's a passion and a drive that you've recently found and discovered for yourself. Maybe it's a recent experience that you had that wasn't really about where you were, but more about who you were with and what you were thinking about. The reason why I'm focusing on this rich list is because this list is something we often forget. It's not on the front page of a magazine. It's not inside the newspapers. It's not on the list online. But this list is one that you can look at every single day to remind yourself how fortunate, how grateful, and how incredible your life truly is. So I quit my job, comfy corporate job, doing really well for myself. And I'm trying to get into media, and so I'm writing to every big media company before my videos and saying, please give me a job. Like, I'll come in at like a video journalist salary. I was looking at salaries that were like a quarter of what I made. I was like, I don't care about the money. I want to make videos and I want to spread a message. I'm getting rejection email after rejection email saying, Jay, you never studied media. Jay, you have no background. So I'm getting rejected by all the biggest companies. Business Insider, HuffPost, The Economist, Wired, you name it. I've got all the emails. And then I try and network with the editors of these magazines. So I find out where they are, I go to the events, I try and talk to them. And they're like to me, hey man, you're like 28 years old. Why do you want to do this? You make more money right now, hang in the corporate world, do it as a hobby. I remember running after one of our biggest news anchors in England called Jon Snow. And he rides a bike around London, but he's huge. He's on Channel 4, one of the biggest broadcasters for us. And so I run after him when he's on his bike, and I'm like, John, please stop. And he stops, he's really kind. I say, John, can you please give me a job? I don't even want to get paid. I'll just watch you. And because he creates these powerful documentaries. He's interviewed the best of the best, like Mandela and all this stuff, life-changing conversations. And he goes to me, he gives me a card and he goes, Jay, go get a master's in media and then come back. And I'm thinking,
I've spent 2-3 more years.
Yeah, exactly. I've got to go back. Anyway, so I came to a point where I literally had no other option than to start a YouTube channel. And my honest limiting belief at the time was that doesn't work for anyone. And that's what I said to myself. I was like, it's not going to work for anyone. But I literally had exhausted. I think it's Thomas Edison who says, when you feel you've exhausted every option, remember you haven't. And I'd come to that point where I felt I'd exhausted every option apart from starting a YouTube channel. So I launched the channel Jan 3rd, 2016, 2 years ago, and it's doing pretty well. Flow or flow state is defined as the optimal state of consciousness when we perform at our best, feel at our best, but also at the same time, ego falls away. Time flies. We're conscious but subconsciously experiencing our own art. It's when we're fully immersed, absorbed, and addicted to simply creating. Now, I'm sure you've all had moments when you felt that, whether you've been playing sports, an instrument, traveling, maybe looking at a beautiful scenic view, or maybe just in a really engaging conversation. But I'm going to share with you how we can experience more flow in our lives because it heightens our sense of joy or curiosity. So the two variables of flow are challenge and ability, and flow is where challenge and ability collide or meet. If your answer to my question earlier is that you often feel bored, it's usually because your skills are higher than your challenge. Everything seems easy, it's not exciting anymore, there's nothing new you need to learn, and you feel like you can do things effortlessly, but not in a way that excites you or empowers you, but in a way that almost drains you and makes you feel more lethargic and lazy.
I'm bored.
But let's say you're feeling more stressed. Let's say you're feeling anxious. Let's say you get nervous often. That's usually because the challenge is greater than our skill. The challenge has become so high, it feels like this massive mountain that we're trying to climb, and we feel like we're completely carrying the biggest weight on our shoulders, and therefore we're feeling the pressure, feeling the strain, feeling that stress. In each of these scenarios, what you're seeing is a disconnect between your challenge and your ability, which is either causing stress or boredom. And there's a really, really simple solution. If you're feeling bored because your skills are higher than your challenge, what you need to do to make life abundant, exciting, thrilling again is raise your challenge. Try new opportunities, go into new arenas, be in new environments, meet new people. What that will force you to do is make you raise your challenge, which allow you to grow, allow you to thrive. And if you're finding that what you experience more often than not is stress, is pressure, is pain, then the way you combat that is by increasing your skill level. Try going on online courses, learn from mentors, go on an apprenticeship, see who you can learn and be coached by and guided by to improve your skills. What that will help you do is meet your challenge with a higher skill set. You'll now be able to walk into a challenge with confidence that you'll know how to navigate the various things the challenge will bring into your life. Flow state is this beautiful space where we completely surrender to the art and allow the energy to truly flow through us. It's something I've personally experienced and want you to experience in your life as well.
If you want 10 more amazing rules from Jay, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
The thing about Dharma is Dharma talks about how we think we have to learn lots of stuff, when actually Dharma is unlearning and bringing out what you already have. Whoa. So one of the things I mentioned in the book is that